Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. So first up today, we have to talk about CNBC's blatant misreporting on Tesla this morning. Now, we're going to touch on this for two main reasons. First, there are still millions of people that are getting their data from CNBC and just being totally fleeced without knowing the truth. And two, it actually gives us a great opportunity to learn the truth about Tesla's financials, accounting, and ultimately Tesla's business model.
You look at free cash flow for this company last quarter, you take Bitcoin out, and there's a negative free cash flow company, which means they are burning cash.
Which is why they liquidated the Bitcoin.
Which is why they liquidated the Bitcoin. So
there's much more coming, but let's stop here and correct this. Martin Viecha, Tesla's head of investor relations, said some folks out there assume that the Bitcoin sale impacted Tesla's free cash flow. That's incorrect. Bitcoin sale has no impact on operating cash flow or free cash flow. But don't just take his or anyone's word for it for that matter. Let's actually check it out. So here it is, Tesla's financials and specifically the statement of cash flows. Now, if you don't know, free cash flow is just all of the cash that is left over or free after all operating activities. Up top, Tesla has cash flows from operating activities. Then if you come down a few lines, you see net cash provided by operating activities. Follow that line all the way across to 2.3 billion. Remember that number. Down below that or separate from that is Tesla's cash flows from investing activities. So all of this data is actually separate. There's a separate line for this, and it will once again give you a total. If you go up, you'll see this 936. This was Tesla's proceeds from the Bitcoin sale. So that 936, if you follow that line across, proceeds from the sales of digital assets. The simple point here is that Tesla's Bitcoin sale during the second quarter had no impact on Tesla's free cash flow or operating cash flow. It did ultimately change the ending cash balance or net cash during the quarter. However, it did not impact, once again, free cash flow or operating cash flow.
The results. Did he call in from a Greek island, do you know? Was he back in the...
Are you asking whether he was being hosed down by Ari Emanuel on a boat while he was on the telephone?
Hosed down by... Yeah, that's what I'm asking. No, he's back.
I don't know. He might be still on the boat.
He could be. We really do not know.
Right there, they were just mocking Elon for taking what was probably a few hours and actually enjoying himself out on a boat. But the point is that we actually do know that Elon was already back in the factory because he told us, already back in the factory, by the way. So the point, these CNBC analysts are not paying attention to the data that is readily available.
Do people look and go, oh, this is a free cash flow positive company, and not understand that this was a function of selling Bitcoin? Probably, by the way, potentially at a bad time, unless you think that this thing is going to continue to go down. He also, by the way, said when he bought the Bitcoin from the get-go that they were going to hold said Bitcoin, that they were not selling their Bitcoin.
Two things. First, we have Sorkin basically mocking investors for calling Tesla a free cash flow generating company because he thinks that Tesla's Bitcoin sale is the only reason its free cash flow was positive during the quarter. We just went over that is not the case. So it's actually Sorkin who is totally misinformed and spreading misinformation. And second, in terms of Tesla holding its Bitcoin, it never gave a date or said, hey, we're going to hold this until 2025. It just said we're going to hold it. It could mean they're not speculating, aka they're not going to try to play the market. Ultimately, though, it doesn't matter because as things and circumstances change, Tesla should have the ability to sell its digital assets if it thinks it's wise to do.
Right, but I'm only making the argument that we and others and the sheep out there that seem to follow this company, the sheeple out there, write these headlines and talk about it as if they beat expectations.
Right.
You know, they're free, and then they have this term, free cash flow.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, what are we even talking about here?
Right.
This is a company that basically sold its Bitcoin so that those numbers could look like that. And if they didn't do that, then we wouldn't be talking about any of this like that.
Right.
Here we have Sorkin keeping it classy by calling many viewers and Tesla investors who actually know the truth about Tesla's free cash flow, calling them sheeple. One last clip from a separate segment.
The analysts never ask about Twitter. They never ask the good questions.
Well, they should also ask, hey, if any of you analysts, why did Larry Ellison quietly leave the board a couple weeks ago on a Friday afternoon? And no one in the press, none of the analysts have asked about that. That was his big buddy there on the board. So I think that's a reasonable question.
Well, there's a lot of turnover on the entire team. They lost their head of AI. They've lost other key execs. So, yeah, I mean, clearly not everyone's in love with Elon.
And I know the Bitcoin sideshow, but I still think it's interesting that he said we're never going to sell Bitcoin, and now they sold it, and they would have been cash flow negative without
Well,
it.
he was going to buy, remember,
are we surprised?
funding secured, 420 for Tesla.
Well, he didn't do that either.
Right.
Yeah.
He is a liar.
The guy just literally said Elon is a liar. Now, yeah, he may miss some timelines and things like that, but to outright call him a liar is just crazy to me. It's also just not true that because Ellison and Andre went on to other projects, that somehow means that they have no love for Elon. It's just factually not true. I was genuinely disgusted hearing this morning. It's like CNBC has at times turned into The View with just a bunch of cackling hens gossiping, not doing anything productive for anyone involved, and actually doing more damage because they're spreading outright misinformation. Remember when I said to recall that $2.3 billion figure that did not include the proceeds from the Bitcoin sale? Here it is, net cash from operations. To calculate free cash flow, as I said, it's just that line minus CapEx to then give us Tesla's actual free cash flow of $621 that does not include the Bitcoin sale. It's also not included up above for Tesla's operating income of $2.4 billion. The only place it will show up is in this ending balance for cash and cash equivalent. So if you want to say that Tesla's ending cash balance would have been lower than Q1 without the Bitcoin sale, that is actually accurate. But both Tesla's free cash flow and operating income both would have still been positive even without the Bitcoin sale. So that's enough negativity for today, but that type of stuff has to be called out and that information needs to be corrected. Share it with your friends and family members. Make sure that they are not fleeced by the mainstream media. Check this out though, Tesla's total debt excluding vehicle and energy product financing. Over the last few quarters, it started at $3.9 billion, went down to $2.1 billion, $1.3, down to $88 in Q1 of this year, and Q2 down to $66 billion of debt for Tesla. With Tesla's updated production capacity by factory now totaling 1.9 million, Elon also said that Tesla plans to hit 40,000 units per week by the end of this year. If you assume 49 weeks in the year to allow for downtime and things like that, that's around 1.96 million vehicles in terms of annual run rate. Let's just be a little bullish here, round that up to 2 million. If then Tesla grows that rate by 50% in 2023, it could be exiting 23 with a 3 million unit run rate. If, of course, the supply chain can cooperate and the force majeure events are avoided. Don't forget to also tell your friends Tesla Fremont is the biggest car factory in North America. Here's an overview of some of the analyst updates for Tesla stock after Q2. I'm not going to go over it. I read through most of them. It's basically just them regurgitating all of the information that you already heard yesterday. That said, if you wanted to know, here's a quick summary. Our friend Alexandra is saying, I am predicting we have an upgrade of Tesla's credit rating to investment grade in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Latest by mid-August. Typically when I add things to the prediction tracker, I do it so that in the future we can have a laugh together at how terribly wrong they are, but that is definitely not the case with this one. We like and support Alexandra, and we hope both for her sake and for Tesla that this prediction comes true. This is pretty cool. Tesla actually now has its own lane for suppliers only to use at the US-Mexico border to speed up vehicles in and out. This lane right here is for Tesla only. Just a quick note on Drew saying on the call that he expects 4680 production at Giga Texas to top 1,000 packs per week by year end. I went back and listened to this part of the call like 5 or 10 times to try to figure it out if he was talking about 1,000 cells per week. He never really said 1,000 packs unless I'm somehow missing it. He could have meant it. I don't know if he was talking about just Giga Texas or all 4680 production. There are a lot of unknowns in my opinion, the way that he phrased what he said. However, However, in terms of numbers that make the most sense, 1,000 packs per week by the end of the year and well ahead of the end of the year does actually make way more sense than 1,000 cells per week by the end of the year, because some of the sources have told me that Tesla is already significantly above 1,000 cells per week. But, and this is a big one, that number was actually the total 4680 production, including Cato Road. So if Drew was talking about production just from Giga Austin, which is just now getting started, that 1,000 cell per week figure could actually be accurate. It's really hard to tell. What Alex shared about Tesla's AI and vision system, basically seeing an accident before it can happen and using that data to pre-tension the seatbelt, this is a super cool feature, one that yes, hopefully you'd never actually have to use, but once again, just reinforcing the fact that Teslas are the safest vehicles on the road. Remember how some executives from the UAW went to jail for fraud? Well, now they're still struggling to reform the organization even after the fact. The UAW's court-appointed monitor said union leaders have been so uncooperative in efforts to root out corruption, including 19 open investigations, the DOJ officials in March were called to intervene. A months-long effort by the UAW to obstruct and interfere with its investigations, during which union leaders allegedly concealed evidence and excluded the monitor's office from key international executive board meetings. Porsche is set to release a fairly extensive software update, but I put that in air quotes because if you scroll down, you learn the scope of the update and duration of the necessary workshop visit depend on the specific software status of the Taycan in question. There are some updates for the UI, thermal management, Porsche Connect. One of the biggest ones though is a range gain of around 31 miles WLTP. To convert to the rough EPA estimate, that would be divided by 1.12, so about 27 miles of EPA range added. Ford is planning to cut up to 8,000 jobs. Now, yes, this is not finalized. However, a mass layoff from Ford Blue, the ICE business that's supposed to be the profit driving center for Ford to transition to electric, which is now under the umbrella the Model E. The eliminations will come in the newly created Ford Blue unit, as well as other salaried operations throughout the company, but the plan has not been finalized. Farley has said that Ford Blue has to make money and drive profits because right now the Model E division, where it makes its electric vehicles, is not profitable. Layoffs are likely to begin this summer, and Ford right now is only employing around 31,000 salaried workers in the US, where the bulk of cuts are expected. Honestly though, I have to give Ford credit. It seems like it's making the very tough decisions to actually survive this EV transition. So while it's going to be painful in the near term and unfortunate for many people, it's what has to be done. Ford's doing more too. It announced today it managed to secure 60 gigawatt hours of supply in order to achieve an annual production rate of EVs of 600,000 by the end of 2023. Here's the breakdown of this expected run rate by late 2023 in terms of which vehicle. Not only that, Ford also said it will import lower cost lithium ion batteries for its North American electric pickup trucks and SUVs, the Mach-E, from CATL. Ford's also looking to secure these LFP batteries from a North American factory starting in 2026. The word is that future CATL factory will supply Tesla, Ford, and BMW. Ford said it's now sourced about 70% of the battery capacity it needs to support its goal of building more than 2 million EVs worldwide by late 2026, a number that Tesla should cross next year. Ford said it's aiming for 8% pre-tax profit margins on its EVs by 2026. Remember, Tesla's auto gross margin X credits around 27, and Tesla's operating margin is still at 14%. So regardless of which profit line this one is referring to, it's going to be less than Tesla where they're at now, and this is 3 to 4 years from now. And look, I know that Ford needs to save money and source lower price batteries like LFP. The question becomes, can they use these less energy dense cells which have less range and still sell enough vehicles, especially if they plan to use them in the F-150 Lightning and the Mach-E, traditionally vehicles that would be a more nickel-based chemistry because they need the extra oomph. Depending on what city you're in, you may start to see some of the Rivian-made Amazon electric delivery vans out in action. By the end of the year, Amazon wants to have thousands of these vans in over 100 different cities in operation. Rivian CEO RJ Scaringe said there will be a host of other applications in the commercial space. We've had a whole host of discussions with other customers. Rivian also is planning a smaller family of commercial vehicles, so it looks like Rivian may be pretty interested in moving more into the commercial space. It looks like the USPS is continually being strong-armed by many different forces into buying more EVs for its next generation delivery vehicles, which is great to see. So now in total, USPS is saying at least 40% of the 84,500 next-gen vehicles it will buy will be electric. NIO is reaffirming a 150 kilowatt hour solid state battery as soon as the end of this year. Remember last night on the call, I think it might have been Drew, if I remember correctly, who said they're not super worried about all of this next generation of battery technology because as of now, it's not yet scalable and Tesla is focused on solutions that it can scale the fastest. He did not say solid state specifically, but it sounded like that could have been what he meant. Either way though, let's keep pushing this industry forward. This would feature a solid electrolyte, a silicon carbon composite anode, ultra-high nickel cathode, and an energy density of 360 watt-hours per kilogram. The word is this would give the NIO ET7 an NEDC range of 1,000 kilometers. That's equivalent to 621 miles, and then to convert to the EPA, you would just divide by 1.43, which would be about 443 miles of expected EPA range. And what's actually really cool is all customers can upgrade battery packs on NIO vehicles on a monthly basis. So customers who wish to upgrade their battery packs can choose to do so either permanently or on an annual or a monthly basis. So I'm not sure that this model will work in the long term. However, it would be awesome to have options like this. And even though we don't get too concerned with daily stock fluctuations, did you really think I could close today's episode without mentioning so far Tesla's 10% positive day, significantly outpacing the NASDAQ, which so far is only up around 1%. So what we know is somebody liked Tesla's Q2 earnings. Is it a flash in the pan and we could go lower? Absolutely, who really knows? But it's always nice to see. That'll do it for today. Please take a second to like the video if you did. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.